everyone. I'm Dan Punt, Executive Editor of Road and Track Magazine. Thanks so much for joining us on episode 10 of Inside Track. We're excited to welcome two very special guests tonight. Andy Thomas, VP of Marketing and Communications at McLaren of the Americas. Welcome, Andy. And Dave Shuten, the creative genius at Galpin Speed Shop in Van Nuys, California. Thanks both for joining us. We'll be talking about two very special cars tonight. First, our custom painted 765 LT, and then the all-new McLaren Artura. But before we begin, for those who haven't seen the current issue yet, I should probably give a little background about what exactly we're talking about here. Volume 3 of the magazine carried a custom theme, and we were trying to think about what kind of cover would really work great for that sort of issue theme. Something that encompassed both traditional road and track, sports car, sports sedan, Eurocentric sort of traditional tastes, but also pay off on the custom theme. And so we struck on the idea of customizing a car naturally. But if we were going to do that, we wanted it to be a spectacular sports car. We happen to have one of those in the issue in the McLaren 765 LT. And if we were going to do that, we really wanted it to have the most striking, unforgettable paintwork possible, and that's where these two guys enter the picture. First, Andy from McLaren, as a representative of the company who did not hang up the phone on me when I proposed that we do this thing, take your $400,000+ car and do as we will with it. I appreciate it. And Dave is our man on the paints. He is the guy who spent the time, the legend at Galpin Automotive Systems and Galpin Speed Shop, who did the actual paint. And let me be clear about something. This is actual paint you're seeing there. That is not a vinyl wrap. That is the work of Dave himself. So Dave, what did you think when I sent you that letter that you later claimed you never read?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't read it. I kind of just went off of our discussion on the phone, and I had a pretty decent idea in mind. But, you know, I kind of wanted to do my own thing, but still pay homage to, you know, what you suggested with the Von Dutch Gullwing and the whole juxtaposition of doing something super crazy on a car that would never ever have that kind of paint on it.
Right.
And really, when I got the car, it's sort of just the panels laid out the paint themselves, because you couldn't do a traditional paint job on this car, and you certainly couldn't do the bottom up the way Von Dutch did, because the panels overlap and there's so many crazy coves and all these body lines going on. There's so much motion and action in the body already. That's why I just played off of that and sort of just exaggerated the motion and had them going every which way with all this crazy energy. And I love the way it turned out.
Yeah, I love the way it turned out too. And just so we're catching people up, the Von Dutch project that you were mentioning and that I had mentioned to you was Earl Bruce, I believe was his name. It was his car, his 300 SL Gullwing Mercedes in the late 50s or mid 50s that Von Dutch did a flame job on, after I think there was already like a candy bronze kind of color on the car. And I saw that for the first time when we were leading up into this project, and I thought, I mean, at first I was absolutely shocked and appalled because I happen to love that car, and I think our readers really love that car. And I thought, you know, that's actually perfect. That's exactly what it should be. I mean, if it's a meeting of the hot rod culture and high-end European sports cars, this is perfect. So I had asked Dave to try to figure out how to take that as an inspiration, and what he came up with, I think, is fantastic. But we had some other ideas early on before the silver blue flames. Remember the gold?
Oh yes. Yeah, well, originally I wanted the color of the whole car, and do
Right.
something a little more reminiscent of the gull wing. But really, I'm happy that we stuck to the factory blue and just took that color and played with it. You know, it worked really good with the flames and then the outline pinstripe of the flames. And you don't see monochromatic flame jobs too much, so it worked really all the way around. Traditional fade
Yeah.
flames, any of that would have murdered it.
Well, and that was one of the things we were trying to figure out as I was thinking about this and thinking, well, it's a mid-engine car. You can't very well have flames on the front, but then you can have flames wherever you want. And your solution was to have flames sort of just erupting out of all places at all times and sort of growing and almost psychedelic in its own way, which I thought was really cool. I know you're a fan of Von Dutch's work, if not his personality traits and some of his opinions, perhaps. But I did see a Von Dutch flying eyeball tattooed on your calf in one of the photos. So I reckon you're probably the perfect guy for that job.
Perhaps, yes.
So
Yeah,
you grew up in the Detroit area. How did you end up coming to California, joining Galpin, restoring some of the world's most famous custom cars, doing paint jobs on $400,000 McLarens? How did that all happen?
well, I was working at General Motors as a tool maker for about 20 years. And about the time that Bo Bachman and I got together to restore Ed Roth's Orbitron, which is in the same issue, General Motors was going through a lot at that time, and they were closing plants. I didn't know where I was going to end up, so it just made sense to make the move and come to California and build cars full time. And that's where I've been for a little over 11 years now.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up you bring all of that up because it was really what people don't know unless they really look at the issue very carefully is how much Dave Shuten is in this issue, how much he sort of glues this thing together, and quite unintentionally, honestly. I had done a story on the Orbitron, as you mentioned, and I find out you led the restoration of that Ed Roth classic. And I think our valued contributor, Alana Scher, was doing a piece about Von Dutch's pinstriping brushes, and she came to you, and that's how we made that connection. And so you're all over this book, which is, I think, fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
But you got into car building before you got out to California, right? Didn't you do Mysterion?
Oh yeah, I had always been building cars. Like I had a big shop in my backyard in Michigan. That's where I built the replica of Roth's Mysterion. I probably built 40 or 50 cars back there before I ever made the trip to LA. And
Nice.
I think Bo and I were talking not that long ago, and we figured out that I've done a little over 85 cars, like 87 cars, I think it was, in the 11 years I've been in LA. Full builds.
Wow.
and light restos. It's been pretty, I don't know, busy.
What did you think of the car when you saw it?
I thought it was amazing. We loved the idea when you presented it to us. We thought it was really clever. I think for me, the contrast of the flames, so the silver flames, and he talked about gold. There's some gold in it, when you watch the video on the edges, you can really see some of the craftsmanship in the car. And it's really different, but I think it's like we talked about, it's a really great blend of old and new. And I think, at McLaren, we're all car people. We're all super into cars, whether it's supercars or hot rods, or we have a real appreciation for this kind of craftsmanship that you just don't see anymore. And I think it's really cool to see it on a new supercar.
Yeah, I think it came out really, really cool, and it's, as Dave had mentioned, it's a tough go on that car in particular, because there are so many vents, so many air intakes, so many little aerodynamic doodads and plates and things that to work around that is quite an impressive job. There is a new McLaren that we should talk about, which I think is pretty striking in its own right, even with solid paint colors and no flames. The Artura, which is just unveiled. And we can see a little video of it.
Really excited.
It's a really cool looking car, and it's quite a departure from for McLaren. It looks quite similar to some McLarens that have been around before, but it is quite different underneath. You want to talk a little bit about its powertrain?
Sure. Yes, it's a completely new car. Whether it's the architecture, the engine, the interior, there's actually a lot of great points to talk on the car. But if we look at the powertrain, it's got a brand new 3-liter V6 with a twin turbochargers and a hot V formation. So the turbos actually sit in the V of the 6-cylinder. It has a 8-speed transmission, and it's really very clever. We don't have a reverse gear. Reverse is actually we turn the polarity on the electric motor, and we just push, the car goes backwards silently. So it's not been done on a car before. It eliminates weight. It's very clever packaging in the vehicle. And I think the other part of the powertrain, when you add the hybrid side of it, we're only talking about 287 pounds that the hybrid components add to the weight of the car. So as a lot of people know, McLaren's all about lightweight and aerodynamics and coupling that with power. And we've really been able to do that with the Artura while bringing in all the advantages of a hybrid and taking those advantages and elevating the performance of the car.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe the most impressive statistic in the sort of spec sheet here, is that relatively small weight gain compared to a V8, non-hybrid car, which is what you're used to building. Now, looking at that photo of the V6, it's a very unusual looking engine. It's very wide V. It's clearly not related to the V8 that has been the mainstay of modern McLarens. Is it entirely new family, or where is this engine from?
It is. It's an entirely new family design from the ground up. So, like you say, it's a 120-degree V. So, I believe we've been a 90-degree V with the 8-cylinder cars that we have. So, we've increased that and sat the turbochargers right in the middle. And obviously, we're getting performance and thermodynamic gains by placing them there. We're also, again, you're able to sit the engine low in the chassis, which obviously gives you the benefits of better handling with a lower center of gravity. And all of this is connected to our new MCLA, or McLaren carbon fiber architecture. This particular monocoque chassis is the first to come out of our new carbon fiber plant in Sheffield in northern UK.
Okay. And is that is the new chassis, the new tub, what's the thinking behind that? Because the vast majority of modern McLarens have been based on a variation of the same carbon fiber tub since the beginning with the MP412C. Is this less expensive, lighter? Does it just accommodate batteries in a way that the old tub doesn't?
I'd say it's the second thing. It accommodates the batteries. Firstly, it's also there's some weight advantages, but it's more about the packaging. So you're able to put the hybrid components just behind what you see in that picture where the seats would be. The other thing that we've been able to do with it being stiffer, you'll notice where the ingress and egress point is, the point is much lower. So it's going to be easier to get in and out of this car than what you've had in some of our previous models.
Yeah, I never look more awkward than when I'm trying to get out of a supercar, but that's great news. So this vehicle doesn't necessarily take the place of the Sports Series, but it sort of supersedes it, if that makes sense, right? The Sports Series, the 570S, is now off the market, or soon will be, and this will be the smallest of McLaren's offerings?
So yeah, so what we're moving to is, like you say, we don't have the sports series anymore, but our three groups of cars are GT cars, of which we have the road going GT and the Speedtail, and then you go into supercars, which are going to be the Artura, the 720, and things like the 765, and then the Ultimate Series, which the last cars were the Senna GTR, and the Elva, which we're still producing. So. Really, it's to make a move. Obviously, this car goes up a little bit in price, but it goes up a lot in performance from the 570. So we just felt it's more supercar performance, and that's what the customers think of when they think of a McLaren. They think supercar.
Yeah. Now, speaking of supercar, one of the earlier Ultimate Series cars, the P1, was also a hybrid, although it was a bit of a different operation there. That was still the V8. With an electric motor for 903 horsepower, so a pretty intense vehicle. Not exactly, a hybrid in the way that a lot of people think about it. But this is really the first full plug-in hybrid able to operate for at least 15 or 17 miles of electric-only range, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's actually 19 miles to be exact. It is different, like you say, from the P1. It is a plug-in electric hybrid, and the P1, the performance, the surge that you felt from that hybrid part of the engine, you're going to get every bit as much in the Artura. And in fact, we've increased our step off. So from the time you hit the accelerator to you get going, by 50% over the normal internal combustion engine McLaren. So that engine, even though it's only 94 horsepower, it's not the biggest electric engine out there, but you're giving much greater feel in terms of performance and torque and so forth.
And just so people are clear, this is still rear drive. This is not an all-wheel drive vehicle, correct?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. This is a rear-wheel drive car. Just like all of our other McLarens, it has hydraulic steering, electro-hydraulic, which is really, for me, is a big part of a McLaren, the steering feel in the car. And I think, if you ask me what we want everybody to take away from this, it's really that the hybrid has magnified all the performance that McLaren has learned in the last 10 years. So we've taken everything we know and we've poured it into this car. And while it's a hybrid and it's more green and it's more efficient, it is also giving you an incredible driving experience, which is really, why people buy McLarens.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that's a great point about the steering. It's always been a very strong suit of McLaren's modern cars, and in part because of that electro-hydraulic system. So I'm pleased to hear that sticks around. So how do you make the V6 sound good? Because the V8s sounded fantastic, still sound fantastic. V6s are a bigger challenge typically. So how do you go about tailoring that to satisfy existing McLaren fans?
Well, firstly, we've got some incredibly talented engineers back in Woking, and I can tell you, I was able to start this pre-production car here in New Jersey a few weeks ago, and this car sounds exactly like a 720 or one of our 8 Series variants. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how they've done it, but I can tell you that because of the positioning and the packaging of the car, the routing of the exhaust is as simple as it possibly can be. It doesn't have a lot of turns. You notice that, like the 720, the exhausts are in the center of the rear valence, so it improves the packaging overall. And I think they do a lot of work on the tuning on exhaust on supercars, especially at McLaren, and they were really able to do a great job with this car.
That's fantastic. A lot of car companies, particularly smaller sports cars companies, such as Lotus, have been making noise about fully electric supercars, which obviously there's an acceleration advantage that electrics possess. They do, however, tend to be a bit weighty. Is there a place in McLaren's world for a full electric sports car?
Well, it's something that's under investigation, and I think, if we're all honest, we can see where the industry's going with full electric. So I think somewhere in the future there's a possibility of having a full electric McLaren. I think in the for right now, we believe the plug-in hybrid still gives you a lot of efficiency together with the driving experience. But I think, like I said, everybody's headed to electric, and hey, it's a great challenge, and we're up for it. We want to be able to find a way to make an all-electric car super exciting, because we all know when you take the sound away from it, that's a big part of the car. It's an emotion. It's a lot. I mean, a lot of people are asking us. The number one question on Artura is, what does it sound like? So the sound plays a big part. If there's anything I've seen in McLaren, is their engineers and designers are some of the most creative people I've ever seen. And they, unlike any other company I work for, the designers sit right next to the engineers. And I can tell you, if we're going to make an all-electric supercar, these guys and girls are going to find a way to make it really exciting.
I look forward to that. I do have a question about the bank angle of that engine. Like, why 120 degrees as a V6 and not all the way to a flat 6?
I would guess it's mostly packaging. When we go and we look at the car, where it has to sit mid-engine, where we're going to place the turbos, and then you go in and you start to do all the plumbing for inlet and outlet and so forth in it. And I think they determined 120 degrees work best for the car.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to give it a try. When did these things start production? When do we expect them in dealerships and all that good stuff?
Well, we start production shortly. We're in the first part of June. We'll be having a global test drive on the car, and then we'll start doing our drive activities with customers probably in the July timeframe. Dealers will start to see the cars kind of the end of July, first part of August, and in there. So I think you could safely say September for customers at this point. And yeah, we've been having meetings with our dealers this week, and the cars are currently on a static tour. They just started, and there's a lot of excitement. I don't believe we've seen this amount of excitement over a new McLaren in a while. So it's really great to see that people are embracing all the new technology in the car, whether it's hybrid or V6. People have a lot to say, a lot of good things to say.
That's great. So you saw the Artura, I hope. You saw the photos there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That we were just talking about. What can you do with that thing?
Well, he'd probably be mad if I put a gas motor in it. It's really, really cool. I love that thing is already. The design is really, really quite fantastic. I don't know. I mean, it's weird for me. I have to put my hands on the car before I know what to do with it. Does that make sense? Once I see it, it just does it. It's very organically happens. But yeah, I mean,
that when we got
endless.
When we got the 765 to you is when things started really popping, and when we started to have some Zoom meetings, which I'm not sure if that was the hardest part of the project or the short time.
Yeah, I'm very new to this whole world of technology. So, as you said in the letter, I am sort of the barbarian in this world where, I do everything the old-fashioned way with big hammers and big machines and welders and old paint guns. It's a very different world than I'm sure what Andy's used to over there in the factory. But the thought process is still the same. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, these photos that we're seeing now are obviously taken from in process, and these were the kinds of things that I started to see very shortly after the car was delivered, and I went, "Oh God, this is actually happening." We're actually doing a flame job on this car, but they're really incredible. Can you walk us through some of your procedure for doing a job like this, like the actual physical painting, masking, all of that?
Really, I just you didn't give me a whole lot of time to do anything, so I just started drawing, and I did what came naturally, and then I just adjusted everything and tuned it in with a tape.
I can't wait to see the car. I've obviously not seen the 765 LT with the flames in person, so I will look forward
Yeah,
to
you know,
seeing
the
that
truth
in the
is,
flesh.
because of this crazy world we're living in at the moment, I haven't seen the thing in person either, and I know that folks that have, who are out on the West Coast, have really liked it, really thought it was cool. That it really makes a heck of an impression in person. But so just so we know, as Dave is sort of maybe trying to get back on. Both of these cars, the Artura and the 765 that Dave painted, will be joining us for the Route to Vine Rally in Napa and Sonoma in August, and the Hudson Quattrocento Rally on the East Coast in October. Additionally, the custom painted 765 will head over to the Quail at Pebble Beach on August 13th to be displayed at the Road and Track Clubhouse there. And then finally, we're not just respraying the car and unloading it, but that car will be auctioned off in this paint job on Bring a Trailer near the end of the year. So that's fantastic. I can't wait for people to see that car. Let's see if we have any questions from viewers. Mark from Orlando asks, you've gone hybrid. Is there still no chance that McLaren will ever make an SUV?
I can tell you that there's no current plans on the table to make an SUV. It's not that we have anything against SUVs. If you look at something like the Lamborghini Urus, it's been a huge success. It's a pretty incredible product. I've seen it and not driven it, but it's an impressive product. For us, we're dedicated to racing and building sports cars, and being the size of the company that we are, I think right now it's about taking our current cars and developing them further, whether they be hybrids or full electrics, and what that looks like going down the road. And we're very very aware of who we are, and we are going to stay true to what McLaren has started from an automotive company up until we are now. So we just don't feel that the SUV fits in there. And at the moment, I think the growth in that market, we may look to it in the future. But for now, we're going to stick with sports cars.
Yeah. Well, that's comforting. I mean, there are plenty of options for high performance SUVs. And that is consistent with what I've always heard from the company, which is that it was built around sports cars, and it's designed to be able to survive building only sports cars and not to have to worry about minivans and SUVs and sedans and all of that stuff. But now that I say that, I mean, is there any possibility of a sedan? That might be an interesting extension for McLaren.
I think, it's a good question on the SUV. I mean, personally, we don't have anything, again, that I've seen any sketches or anything of, but I think some kind of crossover with expanded seating capacity is not out of the question. I think as long as we can make it an incredible car to drive, that's always going to be the most important thing. And I think also having lightweight and everybody has good power now, including, I think, there's a possibility for it.
Fantastic. Let me see if we have any more questions from our viewers. We don't at this time. So I don't think we're going to get Dave back at this point. It seems like he's probably lost power entirely. Yes, no Dave, I'm hearing. So is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Talk about the custom car, talk about the new lineup.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. We've what we've got going on with Road and Track for the rest of this year. It's really fun to be able to see the 765 LT do a number of other things. As a marketer, you don't want to really do one and done. There's such fantastic craftsmanship that Dave's done on the car. I think anybody that has seen the close-up, if you haven't seen the video, you really should watch it. It's pretty fascinating what he can do, and some of the detail that's in the car. So for us, I'm looking forward to having that car out in the real world, provided we get through some of the restrictions and the COVID and the vaccinations go out, and we're all able to get out there and do some driving later this year. I think having the rallies is really something to look forward to for those that are going to be there. If you're coming to Pebble Beach and you're going to be at the Quail or otherwise, we're happy to show you the car. So I think that's something to look forward in the future. I think the Artura, we're super excited about getting the car out here and to drive it. I mean, I haven't driven it. I've talked to people that have, and they're really impressed by it. I was at a dealership here in North Jersey today and speaking to the staff, and there was just a lot of excitement. It was really good to see our dealer partners excited about a product because, everybody's been through a tough time in the last year and a half. And it's great to be able to get out there, be in the car culture and see kind of signs of life, whether it's a new car or it's some of the car events coming online at later in the end of the year. So, I think we have a lot to look forward to going forward, whether you're on your side of the business or our side of the business.
Yeah, it's good for all of us and good for our readers and your customers if things are healthy and people are healthy and we get back to business as close to usual as possible. Speaking of which, we're about to start a new Formula One season. I see you've got an F1 car pictured over your shoulder. That's a pretty exciting prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any association? Go ahead.
Yes, we do have obviously the same company, and we're all sort of doing different things. I mean, the Formula One team, they just did, I was on a call with our sponsors and Zach and Lando Norris last night. Lando went through some of the things that are going on. They did some testing, limited testing at Silverstone just in the past week. There's a lot of anticipation about the team. Daniel Ricciardo coming on board together with Lando, new car, Mercedes power. Really, really looking forward to the season this year. And I think what we've seen here in the United States and Canada is just a more of an excitement, or at least around McLaren for sure, and around Formula One. And adding to that is the Arrows McLaren IndyCar team. So again, a lot of excitement there as well. We work with both entities, bring that together to provide, hospitality for our owners and friends of McLaren. And we're going to be sharing what those details are here in the coming days.
That's excellent. And the team has really been on its way up since Zach Brown took over that side of the business. And Daniel Ricciardo, as you mentioned, is a heck of a driver, as is Lando. So it should be a fun and interesting year. Hopefully some podiums in the future. And we do have some questions here from our viewers. Mary from Seattle asks, and I think I know the answer to this question, but what's your favorite color for the Artura?
Larry, right now it's the green. I tell you, I love orange cars and the McLaren Papaya Spark Orange, but the car looks great in the green, the way it's been shot for the launch. Green as in hybrid. Also, there's a nice marketing connotation there, though. So, the car, obviously, we've seen it in it comes in some really excellent colors. There's one, I'm actually going to paint one of our marketing cars in a color called Volcano Blue. So you McLaren fans out there, the Volcano colors, whether it's Volcano Yellow, Volcano Red, Volcano Orange, are these kind of dark, highly metallic colors that have a huge following with McLaren owners.
It's cool. Yeah, I think the green looks great. And it's just sort of an ascendant color. It seems to get more and more popular as the days pass. I got another question here from Lewis in Miami. He asks, what would Bruce McLaren think of the hybrid engine, do you think? You're going to have to try to connect to Bruce McLaren remotely.
Yeah, I tell you what, hands down, he would approve. Now, if you look at Bruce McLaren, he was just an iconic personality. So he was an engineer, he was an entrepreneur, he started a race team, and everything he did was about pushing things on the racetrack to get the most out of the car. And he always, what was about technology. So the aerodynamics, the wings, the lightweight, that was all Bruce McLaren. And I think, he's really what started the brand. And he's the icon, and he's the person that the brand and the race team's been built around.
Yeah, I kind of get the feeling that if hybrid powertrains were available during the Can-Am years and they were better than a big block V8, he probably would have used them. So I suspect whatever works best is probably his feeling. Kurt asks, how will the hybrid hold up on track?
Well, you may have asked, why hasn't, I'll throw the question back, why haven't you seen a hybrid from McLaren until now? Well, everything we design, it has to perform on both the road and the track. And it's taken us a while to get that hybrid power pack, as I said, down to 257 pounds. It's liquid cooled. As you know, on a racetrack, hybrid or electric cars don't last very long because the heat just takes over after a couple laps. And we've gotten to the point where the batteries are denser, they're smaller, the cooling around them is much more efficient, and we can now build a worthy McLaren that's also a hybrid.
One from Mac here. Is there room for a more approachable sports car, or in your opinion, would that dilute the McLaren brand? Approachable, I assume, meaning less expensive.
At the moment, I would say it is not something that we're planning on, based on the product plan and the technology that we want in the cars. It's very hard to move down market. There's a lot of competitors in the $100,000 to $200,000 space, and for now we're sort of pushing our technology to the next level, and I think that's going to keep us where we're positioned at the moment.
Great. And one more here. Do you think modern supercars are pushing into the quote unquote too fast territory? And it's funny that question comes up from a viewer, because that was in part of our story on the 765 LT is like, this is really at the edge of fast for a street car. Now, if it's on the track, that's an entirely different matter. And you don't have to go fast, you can go slower. But there is a point at which you think, wow, how fast can we possibly go? How fast can we take this?
Mm-hmm. Personally, I've driven the 765 LT. I think it's the most responsive McLaren I've ever driven. I mean, the performance on the car is in another world. I think that car, as it stands for me, is sort of the limits of where you're going to get on road and it still be enjoyable. We've been conducting some research with our owners to learn more about what they look for, and a lot of the people that buy McLarens, it's about like the driving experience as a whole. It's not as much about horsepower. Horsepower matters, and look, everybody wants to quote horsepower figures and so forth, but the overall performance of the car is really important. And I think we get to the level where you're approaching, let's say, 800 to 1,000 horsepower. How much of that can you really use on a regular road? And even some of these cars they're really hard to manage on a racetrack unless you're an extremely skilled driver. I would say the LT is that car. The average driver can't extract a performance even on a track from a 765 LT like a semi-professional to professional driver can.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because I actually drove the P1 on the Top Gear test track when that car was brand new, and I remember being just gobsmacked by the thing, the speed it's capable of. And I remember I had a professional driver, one of McLaren's professional drivers, riding in the other seat. I said, who among your customers, I mean, how many of your customers are going to actually be able to exploit the full capabilities of this car? And he said, well, Jensen Button's getting one. So
I think
there are.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven a P1 too, and the car is unbelievable. The surge in acceleration at like 60 miles an hour. It just hits you right in your rear end as you punch the throttle, and it's a really unique experience. And I think, for a customer that owns that car, that punching around 60 miles an hour up, that's a pretty cool feeling, even if you're not taking it to the limit. And I think that's a really important part of these cars.
A bit of a different question here, and I think we've sort of covered it a little bit, but I have a question that reads, I am 77 years old and have a McLaren GT that I use as a daily driver. Will ingress egress in the Artura be as good? And I think the answer you've already made, which is it'll be better.
Yeah, it'll be slightly better. So yeah, thank you for being an owner, and with our new GT. We're really pleased with that car, and the Artura, it takes it again. It's an evolution of the next car. So you do get a little bit of an improvement with ingress and egress, just because in that picture you could see where it does dip down, where your feet would come in, and that's obviously we're able to make the tub more stiff and be able to take that piece a little bit lower than what we would have before.
And another owner here, Kurt, who asked earlier about tracking the Artura, says, thanks for the response, Andy, as I track the heck out of my 600 LT. So some fans out there. And I got to say, that's another one. The 600 LT is a fantastic automobile on the track, really a spectacular thing. And it reminds me, does it make sense to do an LT on the Artura? Can a hybrid be an LT?
I think so. Yes, I think there's always room to sharpen the edge. The base car is always an incredible car. I would say if you were to drive a 570, a 600 LT, and the new 620R that came out last year, you actually can. There's a big difference between the three cars if you drive them fairly hard. And I think the LT, we're always going to find a way to make the LT that much sharper, than a regular car. And I would just add, if you'd like to drive the Artura on the track, we will have the Artura at the Pure McLaren event this year at Circuit of the Americas, which will be happening in mid-November. So Kurt, I urge you to go on the McLaren Experiences website. We'd love to see you down in Austin to drive the Artura on the track.
I think we're very nearly out of time, but I do have one more question. Does the fact that this car, the Artura, have an actual name, does that mean we're done with alphanumerics for a while or forever at McLaren?
I wouldn't say that we're done with them forever, but we have decided to go more in the direction you saw it with the Elva, the Senna, and now the Artura. And we just felt like as you go higher in the numbers, it just starts the overlap, and there starts to create a lot of confusion in the marketplace. So, if you're an experienced McLaren owner, much like if you think of like all the BMW guys, they know all the project and the model codes, and that they actually refer to the cars that way. The McLaren owners are not dissimilar in that way. But I think for the average consumer, when you start to add the numbers and things and they get higher, it starts to be hard to understand where the cars are in the lineup.
Okay. Yep. Actually, one more just snuck in right under the wire. And I think this guy's username or person's username is going to tell you what you need to know. His name is Gallardo0220. He asks, what do you see as the Artura's main competition?
That's a great question. So being a Lamborghini owner, we see the main competition for the car is a Huracan Evo. And that is purely from a size, power, and price position. However, there's an argument to be made that it is going to compete with the Ferrari SF90 just based upon the fact that they're both hybrids. I know there's a horsepower difference, but there's also a big weight difference in the Artura's on the Artura's advantage side. So, I think those two, and in this market, we have a lot of Porsche owners. They own both McLarens and Porsches, so I don't think you can count out the 911 Turbo S.
For sure, for sure. Well, I very much appreciate your time, Andy. Thanks for hanging in there. Sorry to our viewers that we weren't able to give Dave more time. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but again, I appreciate your being here and viewers sticking with us. So I would just say visit Road and Track shop at shop.roadandtrack.com to check out our gear. Also check out experiences.roadandtrack.com. We've got an exciting lineup of trips planned for 2021, beyond city limits rally to Austin, Texas, a couple of international adventures to Italy and Japan, and some 4-day rallies, the Route to Vine and the Hudson Quattrocento. If you've got a little one in your life, sign them up for the Kids Club, R&T Crew. That gets you a magazine and a subscription box with gear and games and activities every other month. And thanks again to all of our Track Club members. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a Track Club member, visit roadandtrack.com/join. Thanks very much. Good night.